Today's guest is a man who lived many lives, and each chapter is more inspiring than the last. Tommy Kilpatrick is a retired American now living in the Philippines, where he teaches farmers how to build sustainable dome structures in bamboo, growing food vertically, and open free, self managed healthcare clinics. Born and raised in California, Tommy holds a double major in abnormal psychology and accounting and has worn many hats: author, teacher, entrepreneur, and spiritual seeker. After a 28-year marriage ended, Tommy made a radical decision. He chose homelessness and took a vow of poverty, living on farms along the East Coast and walking in faith with God. His journey includes writing a book on health and healing, signing an infomercial contract, surviving financial collapse, and even suing 3 banks in federal court by himself. Today, Tommy is on a mission to empower communities with knowledge, healing, and self reliance. Get ready for a conversation that is raw, real, and deeply transformative. Tommy, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited about this too. So let's dive right in because this is a really interesting topic, and you've had a very interesting life, and I'm curious to kind of get into know more about you. So tell me, what was your childhood like growing up in California, and how did that shape kind of your worldview?
Well, yes. Well, I had a perfect upbringing. My dad was a certified public accountant. My mom was a stay-at-home. I had 2 older brothers who were 7 and 9 years older than me. So when I was 7, I was doing an entrepreneurial project. I just baked a cake and made some Kool-Aid and tried to sell it and didn't have very many customers. So I told my friends to go out and find 3 paying customers. I'd give them a piece of cake. So I started right away getting people to be recruited, I would say. And then when I was 13, I became a scuba diver. And then 14, I was in a scuba movie because I was born and raised near Los Angeles. So I was in a scuba movie. And then at 15, I was a diver. I worked a summer scraping barnacles off of boats. And that
Wow.
led me to, yeah. So I graduated early and decided to then go to work. And so I worked for about a year and then decided to have a double major of abnormal psychology and accounting, which is pretty crazy. So it was. So that's my background.
It is. That's really interesting. And I'm curious, you think about those double majors, those degrees you hold. How did those kind of influence your approach to life and service?
Sure, the hard work it takes to do everything. It's on the one side, I liked crazy people. So I spent time at Napa State Mental Hospital. I was a technician. I had a key so I could leave and come and go. And so I worked with autistic children primarily and who were basically psychotic. They didn't react to anything, but I did what they did and hour after hour. And I connected to them and had a psychiatrist come on and said, we've never had anybody connect to these children. And that's because I did what they did. So that's how I make a connection.
That's amazing. So let's jump into this credit card things. I'm sure a lot of people are, especially after the COVID lockdowns, have kind of run into some financial credit. I think I saw recently somewhere, I can't remember exactly the number, but how many more Americans are in debt right now and just kind of living paycheck to paycheck. So I'm going to give you the big question right off the bat here. What do you mean when you say someone can nuke their credit card debt?
Yeah. So what it's very simple is law is language and language is law. And so if you use the criminal's language, you're never going to win the argument. So it starts with the truth. And here is, I'm a doubting Thomas. So I invite you and your audience to also be a doubting Thomas. And don't believe a single word I have to say today. Okay. Look in the show notes and you'll see 3 links. So look it up yourself and it's going to verify what I'm saying is true. And send this podcast to your certified public accountant or anyone who's had 1 class of accounting. And they'll tell you, I've never thought of it that way, but they'll tell you I'm actually 100% correct. So I'm an accountant and I'm educating you and your audience that you are victims of a crime. The banks worldwide are committing bank fraud. And so I am your victim's right advocate. So what is going on is that the banks are involved in this fraud, as I say, because when you say you have credit card debt, you've got debt and there's nothing way you can get out of it. So when we watch a bank robbery in progress, we see things that are going on there and we always say alleged. So this alleged bank robber. So all I'm asking you and your audience to do is to say the word, add the word. Now you put the burden on the bank to provide the evidence that there is actually a debt.
Okay. So let's dig into that a little bit more. I read some of the things you sent me, and they were fascinating things about how banks work and that you really don't have deposits. So maybe dig a deeper into that concept for people, because when you hear that, people go, whoa, wait a minute. I'm looking
Yeah.
at my my phone here and it says I have X number of dollars in the bank. I just deposit this. And you're telling me that that's not actually accurate. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. There is real credit cards. So let's talk about that. Let's say you need tires and you go into a tire store and you don't have the money. You say, Mr. Haney, please just fill out an in-store credit card application and see if you'll get approved. And you're approved. And so you drive away without paying for those tires. Now you're going to get a statement at the end of the month, which is true. And they have an outstanding unpaid invoice, which is true. So you owe that money. This is not a get out of debt scheme. Okay. That's a true credit card because they have an invoice. So to quote scripture, the truth shall set you free. That's Mark 8:32. So you've got the truth. So so you can't get out of that. But people have come to me and they said, well, I bought tires at Walmart. And you're telling me that's correct. So how you can tell the difference between a true credit card and a fake one is look on the back of Amazon, I'm trying to think, Amazon, what should I think of? Walmart or department store. On the back, if it says issued by Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of London, Bank of Tokyo, Bank of India, those are all fake credit cards because the bank does not have an outstanding invoice. And that's what I discovered when I filed my 3 federal lawsuits against the banks. And that was in my pleading is they did a crime. And so when I got in front of the judge, he said, Mr. Kilpatrick, do you have a credit card? I said, well, let me start at the beginning. Well, we'll start at the beginning a little later. Do you have a credit card? And I go, well, it started off as a gift card. It was a gift card. Pull your wallet out. Pull that card out. What's it say on there? It says credit card. You're an idiot. Get out of here. So he dismissed my 3 federal lawsuits. But a month later, I looked at my credit report and all 3 of those banks were off my credit report. My credit score improved. So what happened is that the banks knew they were committing a crime and they bid into the wrong person. So that's where they asked the judge to call me and throw the case out, but they took it off my credit report. So that's what it really is all about is there's true credit cards and you owe the money on those. And the banks never sold you goods or services or provided you a service. So they do not have an invoice. So they cannot have ever issued a credit card because they're not a merchant.
Wow. So I know people hearing this are going, that sounds really cool. Tell me more about how do I approach it if I have those cards that you're talking about and I have this
Yes, that's
debt.
right.
So what do I
Well,
do if I want to nuke my debt like you're talking about?
Well, you're already saying the wrong words. You're saying, I have debt. And so you didn't add the word alleged. So what we're saying now is bank issued alleged credit card debt. And that's what we're talking about. And that's where you're a victim of this. So what happens is now you're saying there's a loan. Okay, so now we got to go that direction. So before we leave that, you have to agree that the bank does not have an invoice. If they have an invoice, then you owe the money. If they don't have an
Mhm.
invoice, you don't owe the money. So when you want money and you don't have any, you go to a bank and you hopefully walk out with money, not with a gun, but you get a
Right.
loan. Let me ask you a question, Keith. If you go into the bank and you apply for a loan and they turn you down, do you still get the loan?
No.
No, that's crazy. So when you are approved and then you go into the bank and you fill out loan documents, remember all that, all those pages
Mhm.
and pages. So you have to prove that you have an income because the bank could be called into court and the judge say, you're loaning people money and they don't even have an income. That's predatory. So the bank has to have some kind of evidence that you have an income to pay this loan back. You also have to have collateral like your home or your car, or if you have a personal loan, you put up your yacht as collateral, they can legally take that away from you, sell it. And if they come up short, well, that's their problem. But if they come up long, they don't keep the extra money. So they have to pay that money back to you. So banks are only about loans. So what happens is that the banks advertise. Okay. So when they advertise, they need you as a customer. So years ago, your mom went into a bank and the bank had purchased toasters and wall clocks. And he said, Mrs. Haney, if you come in here and you open up an account, we're going to give you a toaster. Wow. Your dad comes
Yeah.
home. How'd you get the toaster? Oh, the bank gave it to me. What it cost you? Nothing. Well, why would the bank do that? To get me as a customer. Okay. So one time in the newspaper, it should come into our bank and deposit $25 and we'll match it in 90 days. So what did I do? I took my $25, opened up a savings account, let it sit there for 90 days. On the day 91, I went in and withdrew $50 and closed my account. So let me ask you a question, Keith. Did I steal $25 from the bank?
No.
No, I walked out with 50. Now, was that immoral? Here's an important thing. Was that immoral what I did?
Some would say, yeah. Well, some would say you've kind of no. I guess not because you met the
Right,
agreement that the bank said, which
right,
was 90 days.
right.
They didn't say you had to keep it in there beyond that. So I would say no.
No, it's not immoral. That's an important thing. We're going to come back to that a little bit later on. So what happens is the bank wants you as a customer. So it's the same thing as when they gave you a $500 Capital One credit card. It's the same thing. They gave it to you because when you go for a loan, you also have to have a credit report and your credit score determines your interest rate. But the last thing you sign is a promissory note. You promise to pay it back. So if you didn't promise to pay this back, it's called a gift. So you got a gift card in the mail. So what'd you do with it? Let me ask you a question, Keith. What is something you want to buy for $500? If I sent you a gift card, what would you want to buy? One item that would be $500 worth. What would you want to buy?
That's hard to think of. I'm trying. Let's just say I'd buy some headphones.
Microphone? Headphones.
Headphones.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Real good quality headphones. Great. So you go to the headphone store, you go to an electronics store and you buy these high quality headphones. That's fantastic. So you're walking out and they say, wait a second, did you pay for that? And you have a receipt. So you own those headphones, right? You got a receipt. They're yours, but you didn't pay that store. So that night or the next day, somebody paid that store. Who paid the store?
If you used a bank card,
Right.
allegedly they paid it.
The bank, right? The bank.
Right.
Now, where did the bank get the money from? It's from their advertising budget.
Okay.
Okay. It's not a loan. They didn't front it to you. It's out of their advertising budget to get you as a customer. So look it up yourself, type it up. What does the average person pay in credit card fees? And it's turned out to be $23.04. So if Bank
Mm.
of America has 1 million cardholders, they're bringing in $23 million a month, which is, on my calculations, is about 1/4 of their profits is from this scheme. They're charging you for a free checking account. That's why they want you to be a customer. So you got this card, you maybe applied for it, and that's the important thing. People confuse the word apply with all these other words. Apply means to request. That's why I asked you if you apply and you get turned down, you don't get the loan. So application means a request. So you requested a credit card or they sent it to you without even unsolicited, which is fine. You use your gift card. That's important to use the words correctly. You've got a gift card. You went to the store and you got a gift to get you to be a customer. Now think about it. In about 22 or 23 months, on average, they're going to make their $500 back. And that goes back in the advertising budget to get the next sucker, next client, what they want to have in. So what you did is you're a good person. You're a moral person. You think you got a bill because you got a statement. Keith, you've had checking accounts before, and every month you get a statement. Is that a bill?
No. No,
No.
it's just an account of where my account is. I mean,
Right.
I'm ranking where my account is. Right.
Right. It shows your beginning balance, your deposits, what you paid, of checks and debits and other fees, and you have an ending balance. It's a statement. Ment means action. State means to say. So the bank is saying something to you. It's not a bill. It's not an invoice, but you think it is. So what do? You're in the Bank of Iowa and you write a check out from your Bank of Iowa, $500 to the Bank of America. Now, isn't that the first time Bank of America has ever seen your money?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So remember, banks are only about loans. So if you have no money, you go into a bank, you come out with money because that's a loan. When you take money into a bank and leave it there, that's considered a loan. You have loaned $500 to the bank. And then as you use it, it goes down. As you put more in, it fills it back up. So when you sent that $500, you loaned the bank $500 of your money. Every purchase since then has been with your own money.
Mm.
Think about this for a second. You get these bills, which are not a bill. You send money to the bank every month. You are fronting, depositing money into your free checking account. They don't charge you for the account, so it's got to be free. So it's a free checking account. You just don't get any checks. The only way you
Right.
access it is with your debit card disguised as a credit card. So when a card comes in the mail, it's a gift card. You send money to the bank, it then turns into a debit card, and that's how you get access to your money. So they've lied to you about the credit card. So when it says terms and conditions and you got to agree to that, that's true, except when it's fraud. So that's in my third link in your thing is that fraud undoes all contracts.
Wow. So I know people listening going, wow, this is great news. So now I can go back and I can stop paying all these things. So these alleged bills I have. If you're hearing this and you go, okay, so what's my next step? If this is true and I've been scammed, this is a fraud. How do I rectify this real debt that I have or I think I have?
See, yeah, there you go again. You go back into, let me
Right.
ask you a
Because
question.
we've been brought into this system and we've been taught this over the years that this is something that you owe. And as people who want to be faithful to especially as a Christian, if I have a debt, we think we know that we're supposed to take care of that. So what you're telling people is something that's actually mind-blowing in terms of the perception of what we've always been taught and learned. So go ahead.
Yes, to quote Jeremiah 9:6, you live in the midst of deception. So we are
Yeah.
living in the midst of deception. Let me ask you a question, Keith. Is it possible that you have been lied to, indoctrinated, and brainwashed, including your audience and me too? Is it possible?
Of course it's possible.
Of course it is. So a lie is a lie, and we know a lie, but what happens if it's told generationally? Now, your mom says, Keith, this is a credit card and you have to pay the bank back. Don't buy more than you can, or they'll charge you interest, and then you're going to get in trouble and they're going to sue you and everybody. And so if you do not question that, you and your audience are been brainwashed. I don't do that to insult your audience. So if you start using the word allege, now you're starting to not be brainwashed. So
Right.
that's what you're talking about is we've done this knee jerk. It's just an automatic reaction. So what do? I'm saying that you are a crime victim. Okay. You have to have evidence of that. What would be the evidence is your credit report. On your credit report, Bank of America's on it. What's it going to say? Credit card, right?
Right.
We established that the bank was never a merchant. Just think about this. Back 100 years ago, you went into the general store and you said, hey, Charlie, I need 5 pounds of flour, a pound of sugar, and I'll pay you when my crops come in. Oh, yeah, Keith, we got you written down here. Oh, Charlie, can I borrow $10,000? What am I, a bank?
Yeah.
You go see the bank. Banks are about loans and merchants are about cred. Cred is a Latin word that means to believe that you're going to pay them back. So you need to have your evidence of a crime, and that is your credit report. Okay. So if you're a crime victim, then you've got to report this, right? Well, if you're not a crime victim, then you're not reporting. So you have to report this. You don't go to the police. You don't call your local sheriff up and say, hey, I've been defrauded. They're going to say, that's civil. That's not us. We don't deal with criminal. We only deal with criminal things. Go away. So there are state and federal agencies that oversee the banks. So with your piece of evidence, you send a letter to them complaining. You do it online, but you save a copy. It's important to have a copy of your report. All right. So then what do? You want to close your free checking account. Now, here's something. Keith, when you go in and close your account, normal checking account, and they say, oh, sorry to see you leave us. We've had you a great customer. We love to keep you here if we can do anything. But here's $3.16, and that's what's in your account. They give it to you, right? They
Right.
don't close it until they zero it out and they give you back your money. The bank confiscates and keeps your money. So you have to withdraw your money before you write the letter. Okay. Other people might call it maxing out the card, but that's the criminal language. It's not max out the card. You put your money into the bank. You got to get it back out. So you get your money out of the account. Then you send a letter to the bank, ask them to close the account to show it to be closed by the consumer in good standing. Even though it's got all the derogatory, even though it's got years and years, no, you're asking them to close the account and make it into a closed account by the consumer, not by the bank, and with good standing. Also, it's nice to add in a letter from a CPA that says if you have an outstanding unpaid invoice, send it. And if it's valid, we'll pay it. We're not trying to get out of debt. If you've got
Right.
an invoice, then send it to us. We also want to see the certified copy of the promissory note, which is by federal banking regulations you have to have in order to make a loan. If you have that, then send it, and we'll pay the loan off. We're not trying to get out of our loan. And then you have the attorney send a letter saying, Contracts are null and void if fraud is involved and you've defrauded my client, basically, and there is no contractual agreement. So the CPA says close the account, show it as closed by consumer and in good standing. I had a podcaster contact me a couple of weeks ago. He got sued by Citibank for $3,300. And about 4 days from then, he was going to be in default. And that's what it's automatic. Every attorney knows this. Every judge knows this. Every single person you talk to knows you got to pay the credit card debt or you get sued. So what I have you do and what I had him do is ask for an extension of time to answer because we don't want to go to court. We don't want to get involved in all this kind of thing, right? So we're asking for more time. What's the reason? One, I want to hire an attorney. We're not going to hire an attorney, but the judges love that. Oh, yeah, more money
Right.
to the brotherhood. All right. He's a good guy. We want the money in here. The other one is I'm going to do some legal research. Okay. And I would need time to file a counter complaint. Counter complaint? How can it be a counter complaint? Everybody knows it's a debt. No, you've been a victim of crime. So you put in a counter lawsuit. So if they sue you, they're going to see that you're going to sue them back. It's a freebie. It costs you nothing to do this. So you send that back to them saying, here's the crimes you committed. You don't have this and that. And by the way, we have a deposition date set and there's interrogatories. There's demand production of documents. There's the admissions and an injunction. Now, before, a lot of people didn't know about this, but Trump does one thing. And what do people do? Run to court, get an injunction, stops everything, right?
Right.
So this is an injunction, which is going to force the judge to look at the outstanding unpaid invoice, which the bank doesn't have. He's
Right.
going to be able to have to see the certified copy of the promissory note, which they don't have. And we're asking them for an affidavit of debt. Someone in the bank has to swear out on a Bible, not assuming that the consumer walks in and says, yeah, judge, I got credit card debt. Boom. You're done for. No, I want someone in the bank to swear with a penalty of perjury. So they'll have to go to jail or a fine and say they have the instrument of debt or a loan, and they're going to testify. If they don't have that, the judge has to find them in contempt of court. So once the bank sees this, they're not interested in any way, shape, or form of you. So that's what happens is they remove it off in about 45 days. It's off your, now I don't want it off your credit report. I want to say, because it's the time you need that for your score. So we want that good credit on there. So closed by the consumer, but in good standing. Now you say, well, what if they don't do that? That's right. Perfect. Because we put all this evidence to the credit reporting agency and file a complaint because we're a victim of fraud and we can prove it. We have the evidence. We have the complaints to the state and federal authorities. And here the bank has not done what they're supposed to do. So we really can't ask them to clean it up. We ask them to remove it off the credit report. So that'll be deleted off your credit report within 45 days.
As I hear this, I'm thinking to myself, wow, that sounds like a lot. And most people probably don't think I have the time or energy to do that. But it's worth it if you've been defrauded. But how do you convince people that this is, first of all, manageable for the average person to do? Because what you've just described is someone who knows the system and knows how to deal with it. But if you're new to this and it's like, this is a lot, where is a resource people can go to figure out what steps and assistance they need to actually pull this off?
Sure. I have written a book. It's called Forgive and Forget. And you're not asking the bank to forgive you. You are doing the right thing and giving them mercy. So you're forgiving the bank for the fraud, and you can forget about this credit card debt. So it's called Forgive and Forget: How to Nuke Your Credit Card Debt. So I have it all laid out. We pop your name in, we put the account in, pound number, and boom, it's all done. So I've got a template. It just goes right out and we send it to the agent, the registered agent, and they're the ones who take the lawsuits. So it goes right to the company there, and it is accepted easily. And in 45 days, they're deleted. So it's not a problem at all. And it's that simple. So yeah, and I have a free consultation. So if you consult with me, I'll give you my $69 book for free. So I want to help you out and make this so. So my best client, I'm on here for a reason. So my best client is a company who's got $200,000 of the corporate credit card debt. They think it's debt. Their board of directors have all maxed out their cards, trying to keep the company going. The employees are all maxed out, right? Or they're in debt. So what I want them to do is I'll talk to the CFO, the chief financial officer, which is most likely a CPA, and their vice president, which is most likely an attorney. I wanted to have a meeting, and the attorney says, we've been defrauded. Let me take this over to the CPA. Folks, we don't have an invoice. They never did a loan. So this is totally legal. And back to the attorney, and we don't have a contractual agreement because of fraud. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a letter to Bank of America, Citibank. They had the whole list. I've got my cards here. The company's got their cards. And if you employees want to put your card on, you better take the money out first. So take the money out first and then put the name on. And in 45 days, we're going to have this all resolved. And it's going to be off of everybody's credit report because all the bank has to do is put down closed by consumer, good standing, and it's done. So it's that simple. And usually I find people. One podcaster I talked to about 2 weeks ago, I found him 20. He didn't even know he had. So how do you get paid? I find you money and I get you out of, and I don't get you out of debt. What I do is I find you money, your money that you didn't know you had. And I'm also able to have you stop being a crime victim. Now you're going to say, well, I'll never be able to get a credit card again. Well, what happened to me, the wife, kicked me out 13 years ago and I became homeless and on choice. And then I did a vow of poverty. So I had no credit score and no credit report for 10 years. I was clean, right? So I knew I was coming to the Philippines and I needed to buy an airline ticket with a credit card. And I had to
Right.
rent a car with a credit card. So I applied to Capital One and got and they gave me, it's important words, they gave me a $500 credit card. But I had no score and no credit history. I was a previous customer.
Ah,
Okay. That's one of the banks I sued for $35,000. So I will teach you and your audience how to get a credit card again, how to raise your score up again and get the credit cards. Because I got a credit score immediately of 525. I got a small little installment loan by a credit union. So I jumped to 625 and I used $50. Yes, I know the story. So I run $50 every month and that gave me a score now of 710. So I want to show you how I can get that up to 810 in a matter of a year. So then if you want to, you at least should be knowledgeable of what's going on and the risk you take. But when the bank says they lowered your credit limit down, no, they didn't. You had $500 in your free checking account and now you got $250. The bank stole $250. Oh, they closed my account today. No, they stole all of your money. So this is the risk that you agree to be involved in this because you're dealing with a criminal. You got to have your eyes wide open so you can get a credit card immediately because they want the $23.04. On average, they know you're going to screw up. They know they're going to get the money from you. So I talked to one podcaster and he's paying over $800 annual fee. You don't want any of those. No annual fee, and you never pay them a penny of interest ever, and you'll be able to be just fine.
wow, that's amazing. Are there different rules for different states we have to be aware of when we're doing this?
And it works worldwide too. And that different countries have different things about the law of the fraud. It's not, and some agencies they have, and some they don't. But here in America, we got them federally. It's very simple.
All right. So, Tommy, I'd love to ask my guest this question too. This has been a great conversation. I wish I could spend even more time with you. But as you think about the impact you've had so far in your life, what do you want your legacy to be?
That's the trying to think what that legacy. I'm trying to remember what that was. I had written it down. Now I forgot about it. The legacy. Let me see. The doubting Thomas. That would be it because I am a doubting Thomas. He doubted everything.
Right.
He touched it. He's a believer. So Doubting Thomas got a bad rap. No, he was just skeptical. So I want you to be skeptical as well as skeptical of me. So don't believe a thing I said today. Look in the show notes. Take this to your CPA and have them verify. I never help anybody unless they have a third party verify it. So I want to talk to your attorney. What kind of scammer wants to talk to your attorney? Only if you have the CPA because they've been brainwashed. They're going to say, it's a credit card. I got to have the CPA said, no, it's not. How can that be? I got a credit, says credit card right here. It can't be a credit card because they don't have an invoice. They're not a merchant. Well, then they have a loan. Never the loan. They have to have a promissory note. Well, there's that condition, when you have terms and conditions. Don't you remember fraud undoes all contracts? All right.
So, where can my listeners connect with you, Tom, if they want to learn more about you and learn more about the process?
Sure. It's very simple. Tommy A. Kilpatrick on Facebook, and you'll reach me really easily. And in the show notes is my email and the link to get the free book. So you can just contact me for a free consultation. I'll give you the book for free. And there's great story in there about the courtroom situation that happened to me and happened to several of my expert witnesses that were CPAs. So I've helped over about 1,000 people in the time that I had a charity at the time. So
Well, thank you so much. So, as we wrap this up, is there a key takeaway you want to leave with the audience as we wrap up this conversation?
sure, your mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. All I'm asking you to do is have an open mind about this and see if it works for you. It can. Maybe it's for you. Maybe it's not. But it's up to you.
Well, Tommy, thanks so much for this. Was an engaging conversation, and I have to say, you're one of my guests who blown my mind about the possibility of what we've been told and what we
I know. I know.
life is in
It's
general. So
crazy.
I just really appreciate this conversation. And I would encourage the audience, thank Tommy for sharing his unconventional, thought provoking insights. Whether listeners agree or not, your story challenges us to question the systems we've been taking for granted and explore new ways of taking control of our financial lives. If today's conversation has sparked curiosity, don't stop here. Dive deeper into Tommy's work and ask questions and start exploring how financial literacy and legal awareness can empower you to rethink debt and ownership. We thank Tommy for being an amazing guest on the podcast.